We're back with the chairs, Dean and Steele. We were talking about immigration. Then you have Lindsey Graham this week pushing a national abortion ban to do it federally. Here's what happened, though, when he talked to some conservatives about it on air.
Yesterday was the day they lost all momentum when this inflation thing punched them right in the face, and you gave them an out. No, you're right.
I'm not going to apologize.
You're right. No,
ever apologize about standing up for the unborn. And you know what? We need to go on the offensive here.
But there, you got to talk tactics, Senator. It's terrible timing, terrible tactics. Now all the media and the Democrats are talking about federal abortion ban. Federal abortion ban. You know that's not smart politics, right?
Howard, what do you see happen there? The pushback from Jesse, the banner said that basically Lindsey Graham was fumbling politically.
What I see is a minority party who's trying to exert their will on the majority of the population and trying to figure out how to do it as deviously as possible. Look, the Republican Party is just shattered. They're a small bunch of decent people who have ideas that I don't agree with but are reputable Americans. And then the majority either are cowards or they don't care about the United States anymore. It's not just democracy that's on the ballot. It's our way of life. Can we get together? Can we agree on things? And these faux Christians that get on and pretend they're all religious, that what they really want to do is enslave women again and put them back in the dark ages. I've had it with these people. And what Lindsey Graham did, I think, is great. If I were Schumer, I'd call a vote and make the Republicans vote on this and see how people like that. Look, we surprised a lot of people in Kansas. And why is that? Because most people in Kansas are decent, thoughtful people. Then they may be conservative, but they understand the difference between being conservative and standing up for America. And they understand the difference between signing on to some right-wing crackpot preacher and actually standing up for values that respect every American's right to decide for themselves how they're going to live their lives. That's what this is about. Who's going to tell us how to live our lives? Is it going to be the big government of the far right wing, full of bombastic people financed by people like Peter Thiel? Or is it going to be the American people themselves? And you've heard me say this before on this show, this is up to the voters. If this goes down, it's not going to be the Democrats' fault or even the Republicans' fault. It's going to be the voters didn't get out and stand up for themselves. And that's what they have to do. Get out there and stand up for yourself. Stand up for the rights that are yours under the Constitution. Do not give them away to schoolboys who need to be spanked like Abbott and DeSantis, or to big puff artists who never did an honest day's work in their life like the former president of the United States. We can stand up for ourselves and we can take this country back, and that's exactly what we're going to
do. Michael.
No, I think Howard makes an excellent point about where the voters are in this, which was what I was really driving at and when we were speaking in the beginning of the segment. This is in our hands at the end of the day. We're watching all of this stuff unfold around us, folks. How do you feel about it? Just don't have a reaction at the kitchen table. At some point, you've got to turn that reaction into an action that stands with our democracy. Or you don't. Okay, that's your call. But please don't sit back and bitch about the circumstances we're living in later on. Don't sit back. I say this as someone who's pro-life, but don't sit back and start complaining about, oh, my God, look what happened to women, when you had an opportunity to stand with them and stop this aggressive action to take their choices and their decisions away from them, to stand between them and their doctors and their pastor and their imam, and do something that collectively we all recognize is an important part of our democracy, which is fundamentally what this boils down to. So Howard is exactly right. The voters have the last say here. And as I said a little bit before, we're looking at numbers right now that says voters in Florida are like, okay, yeah, hey, DeSantis, more of that.
Right.
And we see this in other races around the country.
Yeah, and you mentioned your personal views. People have religious views. There's a lot of pro-life people in Kansas. What they rejected was theocracy. What they rejected was Alito and others sitting in D.C., and Justice Roberts was clashing with someone this week about it, and saying, oh, is it law? Is it precedent? Is it what you swore under oath to the Senate?
That's right.
Or is that all just a useful fiction for people who are gullible enough to believe that judges would tell the truth under oath when they're actually the last line to speak? supposedly administer that. And actually, you change the people around, and suddenly your rights disappear. So we've hit more than one important thing. Because I have both chairs, I do want to get in. You know, people say, wait, what about the other stuff? The Biden administration actually had this breakthrough on the rail company and worker unions clash. They have this tentative deal to avoid a strike. Let's take a look.
There's significant damage that any shutdown would have brought. Our nation's rail system is the backbone of our supply chain. Everything you rely on, and it's hard to realize this, from everything from clean water to food to gas to everyday, liquefied natural gas, to everything, every good that you need is a big win for America and for both, in my view.
President arguing it's a big win there. Meanwhile, his approval rating, which had been quite low, as we've covered, is up 9 points since July. Howard, you know we do facts around here. That's why sometimes after I'll say a sentence, we'll say facts. I don't know if you know that's what the kids say sometimes. And look, Biden has not been a super popular president. He has not been as popular, for example, as Obama at some of his peaks, the president, of course, he served. But he's up. What does that tell you, and how does that relate to, I guess, the stuff he's doing today, where it's like presidenting?
Well, you know, we've got about 7 weeks before the election, and lots can happen in 7 weeks. But I'd rather be a Democrat today than I would a Republican if I'm in this fight. You've got a president who has handled things really very, very well. There's a small thing that most people aren't going to look at statistically, but it's going to affect every American. The number of cargo ships waiting off the port of Los Angeles has dwindled to a minuscule number.
I think about it every morning.
Yeah, Biden got out there early on and straightened it out and got more people in there to handle the freight and so forth. And now the supply line problem is going away. So this guy knows what he's doing. He's not the most exciting, charismatic guy in the world, but he delivers results under circumstances that Trump totally and utterly failed. In fact, in many places, caused these problems. So I'd rather be us than the other side anytime. You've got whack jobs telling all the women in the country that are going to take their rights away from them. And it wasn't enough to have the corrupt Supreme Court make the decision they did. And they are corrupt. This court's been put in place by 20 years of dark money through the Federalist Society. The court needs to be remade. We're going to get a mandate to do that. We're going to take the Senate. We're going to hold the House. And in the next 2 years, we're going to have to straighten this country out. And the voters are going to give us that power because I think they're pretty scared about what's happening in this country. Women losing their rights, deporting people to other states without the rule of law, lying to them about what they're doing, just like the old hardline Southern segregationists did. That's the mindset of the Republican Party. Not all the Republican Party, but the people who control the party have the same mindset as Bull Connor did at that bridge. And we're not going to stand for it. And I think the American people aren't going to stand for it. And I think we're going to kick their butts in November.
A bullish Howard Dean. Final thought with 1 minute, Michael Steele. I only lightly joke about the supply chain because some of the dry, boring stuff is important. But we're not all thinking about it. What do you think of, to Howard's point, that you got a president here who's not flashy, but appears to be immersed in doing the job sometimes?
He's doing the work. He's doing the work. This rail strike could have been a real problem, a real hiccup in the recovery narrative. And the fact that he got to the table, he brought people to the table, and he solved it, or at least tentatively have put a framework in place, is huge. I mean, again, Joe's a guy, President Biden is a guy who's been on the rails. I would run into him on my trips from Washington to New York to come hang out with you, my friend. And you would see, I mean, how people responded to his connection to what real people do every day. And so he knew and understood what this disruption would be, not just for our commerce, but for the communities of men and women who work in the rail industry, which, you know, he's tried, as he made a promise to revitalize, and he's beginning to do.